Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Bharti, and thank you, Amanda, for an introduction. And what I will be doing today with my colleagues is to show you the two products that we have, which is the Wiseplanner and Alerts. So we'll first get started with the Wiseplanner product. The Wiseplanner product is an add-on to your ERP that helps you do your budgets efficiently. At BAASS, we recognized quickly that with this add-on, our clients were saving a lot of time during the busy times for when they had to complete the budgeting spreadsheets within their ERP system. So just a little bit about the actual budgeting process. This may not be the exact steps that you follow, but typically based on our conversations with our clients, we recognize there are a few steps to completing your budgets. And the first thing you would do typically is you would generate your budget templates. And that simply means, depending on what accounting system you're using, you would log in and you would pull data from that system into most likely a spreadsheet. And, things like your GL account, things like if it's an expense account, what was the actual expenditure last year, just so that you have some guidance as you do the budgeting process for this year. You may even pull, for example, the budget that you had for last year because you want to compare as to how you would relatively compare to current year's budget and so forth. So you would pull some reference data and put it all in the spreadsheet. If you had multiple cost centers, revenue centers, or departments, you would distribute those templates to individually heads of departments responsible for that business unit and request them to complete the budgeting templates so that you have input from their specific areas as well. As an accounting lead, then you would consolidate all of the spreadsheets, and I say spreadsheets because that's the typical method that our clients use and what we've seen, that they share data with other business unit leads, and once it's completed, it all comes to the accounting lead, and then you're responsible to consolidate them and validate them and put it back into, in this case, I'm giving you an example of Sage 300, but whatever accounting system you have. So that is typically the steps that an accounting lead follows when completing budgets. So we appreciate that your budgeting process is time sensitive. It has fixed timelines. Sometimes, when you have to submit your budgets at the end of the month of March, you probably would start, early January, start distributing the templates to the business units. By the time you get it back, based on other people's availability, you are actually dependent on other people's input. So you wait, you gather, and then you have to do some data massaging before you can get it into your accounting system. And we've seen and observed that it takes away from your regular day-to-day duties, time, and sometimes we've even seen that our clients struggle and work extra hours to complete all that work so that they have budgets in time approved and put into the ERP system so that your transactions can flow through in the system and start monitoring against your budgets. So bottom line is that our accounting users end up spending more time getting that information out of the accounting system, collecting the feedback from the other team members, massaging the data, and then struggling and working their way around to put it back into the accounting system. With the Wiseplanner, we shift that effort to just a click of a button so that when you get the data back, you're using your valuable time to now validate that your business unit leads, whatever they submitted, is that reasonable? How does it compare to last year and previous year's budgets? Basically, do your trending and make sure what they've provided is valid before you enter the data in the ERP system. So we shift the focus from, as I mentioned, data massaging to the actual analysis, and you're able to use your time in a valuable manner to now manage budgets. So we take away all of the manual work, and now what I'm going to show you is I'll actually show you the product, but I'll just walk you through the steps at a high level so that you can relate to the demonstration itself. So we automate all these steps using the Wiseplanner product. So the Wiseplanner product has been developed by BAASS internally, and we have many different clients using the product, and we've got amazing feedback and reviews, from time savings that the clients have used, once this product was implemented. Our team, because it's developed internally, we had full control over this product, and whatever experience we gathered after working with our clients, understanding how they use the software, listening to some of their pain points, one of the things we found that it was very important for this budgeting tool to be extremely simple, because it's not something you would do every single day. You would want to do that, some clients do it every 3 months, 6 months, some clients just do it once a year. But when you do it, you want it done efficiently and in the shortest time possible. So one of our biggest goal was to keep it extremely simple, that you as an accounting user would almost need no training to use the products. And when you see the demonstration of the product, you will appreciate what I mean by that. We've kept it very simple. The other big thing that we recognize is that the accounting team loves to work in Excel, and that's a great thing, because the Excel out of the box functionality lets you do calculations, puts in formulas, it lets you easily copy paste information from other sources and so forth. So we recognize that, generally speaking, many of the accounting users would prefer using Excel as their method of validating the data, putting the data, doing any sorts of data manipulation. So we made sure that Wiseplanner was able to use the Excel application. And this kind of relates to the simplicity of the application. We are the developers of the product, and we can praise the product anyhow we want, but we actually witnessed that when we deployed this, our clients almost needed no training. We actually just walked them through one session to say, here's Wiseplanner, here's the template to generate, and off they went without really much training. So they needed some help with installation, and off they went. So really, that's a benchmark in sort of being very proud to say that that is a very simple product that almost needs no training for an end user to use. So let's walk through some of the key features of Wiseplanner. So what you see now is the front end, and this is the only one screen that you need to work with in Wiseplanner. And they're not multiple screens or anything like that. So this is a one-time settings to say, whenever I generate any Excel templates, I want these users to be receiving the templates. It's a one-time setup. So if you want, just yourself using it, then you can even skip these settings. But if you had business unit leaders where you want to distribute, then you would set all the business unit leaders here once. Okay. You can then create a template, a budget template. And what I mean by that is, as I walk through the screens, you will see that every template has a different settings. And through the template, we allow our clients to define their business rules. So for example, if this example is Sage 300 related, and I'm using a company called S6DAT to connect. Now, you may be running multiple companies or multiple legal entities. You are able to put in the templates for all of those companies separately. So that's what I mean by defining the business rule. Let's assume you're just using the one company. That's great. You create the one configuration, and then you put in the templates for that company. And some of the business rules or parameters that you will put is, for example, what's the template name? In this example, I'm showing you that I'm doing budgeting for 2020. Um, your accounting system may support more than one budget set, and you may be just using the one budget set, but some of our clients use multiple budget sets because they want to have the first budget set as preliminary, and then they would want to have a second one that is sort of approved, and then they make any override changes and whatnot, and then finally when that is completed they would upload. So they would have up to 2 budget sets, and you're able to keep your template separately, so you're able to see what was your original budget numbers for budget set 1 and what were the revised numbers in budget set 2. So you're able to control that using the templates. You're able to also control your fiscal year and fiscal period to say, we've seen that some clients budget for full calendar year, which is great, or full fiscal year, but some clients do it every quarter, and therefore they would say period 1 to 3, and then they would have a different template for period 4 and so forth. So you're able to control that, and you can name your templates accordingly to say this is my quarterly budget or my annual budget or whatever that is. You're able to control the currency. If you want to budget in multi-currency, you're able to do that as well. So the idea here would be you would define your first template and say, I want to just do the budget set 1, and then review, distribute, collect it back, validate, and then I'll decide what I want to do next. And then you can continue on without overwriting the data. You can do your validation and what ifs by having multiple templates. So that's the beauty about Wiseplanner. You don't necessarily have to, once you start, even if you make a mistake, it's easy to correct the mistakes. That's the bottom line. It lets you select your account ranges. So, depending on who you're sending the template to, you can just include your income expense account, or if you're sending this for capital expenditure, you can include your other accounts as well. So you have a choice of, and this is a real-time lookup in your ERP system. It's not something you manually have to remember or type. The lookups for the values that you see on template definitions are real-time lookups from your ERP system. In this example here, I've included the GL account, and I've also included segments. Now, depending on the ERP system you're using, in Sage 300, it is segments, or this would represent, for example, business units or cost centers or division or whatever that is, departments. In other ERP systems, they're called dimensions, and this is just a way of allocating the budget to a more granular business unit. So we do support that with Wiseplanner. I was mentioning that when you or your team is doing the budgets, the referential data is very important. And what I mean by that is, yes, you can give them the GL accounts to say, hey, tell me, how much legal fees do you forecast for your department this month? And that's great. And they may say, you know what, so much dollars. But if they had the referential data, from in terms of the actual expenditure amount from last year or even 2 years from before, then they are able to make an informed sort of derivation of their budget figures to say, oh, last year I spent so much, so it's likely that I'm going to go 10% over and so forth, and so that acts as a guidance. So you're able to include referential data in your budget sheets, and I'll show you what I mean by that in the demo. In terms of sorting your data, again, depending on what your ERP offers in the Sage 300 world, we group the Wiseplanner or the budgeting data by account group as well as GL account, but we also do it by optional field. So, for example, if some of you, this is an example we've seen, so I'll share if it's applicable to you. Some of you would like to track your budgets by project, and you actually have an optional field defined in your GL module. And that optional field is on the GL account level, and it represents basically a project. So if you wanted to sort your budget sheet by that optional field or project, we are able to do that as well, so that when your recipient receives the template, the sorting is done by the project instead of the GL account. So here I have a completed example of one template where I have said I want to do a budget set 1 for fiscal period 2020. I want to include the full calendar year. I want to do it in Canadian currency. I've selected my GL account and the segments, and then right from this screen, you're able to right click and hit launch. And what this will do is it'll pull the relevant data in Excel for you to work with. So this is really, once you get used to this, this is like a 5-minute data entry of your settings, save, and you hit a button called launch, and that pulls your data in Excel in the format that you're able to work with. Not in some convoluted format where you have to figure things out. It's very simple, and I'll show you what that will look like. Something like this, right? So in this example, I have my revenue accounts, GL accounts. I did include, for reference purposes, I included 2019 budget to say what did I budget? What was my actual expenditure or revenue for that account in 2019? And then I'm able to use Excel to put in my values or budgetary numbers for year 2020, period 1. And I'm able to use full Excel functionality. So I can just go refer to this cell, add 10%, copy as is, or put in different formulas that you like, and you can complete your budget sheet in Excel. So this is just an example. While you are in Excel, you are able to do some calculations using the add-in. So Wiseplanner provides the template to you, and it also provides you with this add-in options. And what each one does is, if you hit refresh, and in Excel you have the actual expenditure amounts from beginning of the year till now. If somebody posts a GL batch in, for example, in the accounting system, you hit refresh, your Excel sheet will reflect the correct number as of now. So this is basically saying, yes, I can see my data, but if there are any changes, you hit refresh and it'll pull the data again so that you have the accurate data at that point in time. Okay. As you're completing your budgeting, you may not be ready to fully sync into Sage, and therefore you can save in an interim bucket somewhere. Let's call it Wiseplanner. So you can save, shut down, come back tomorrow, switch it on, and resume your budgeting without anything having to go into Sage. So it's only when you complete it that you would say, I'm now all done. This looks correct. I've done my validations. Now save to Sage in this example, right? We also have some calculation or formula add-ins where you would put in the budget, like say a lump sum amount, and just spread it over your fiscal periods, or just put in a monthly amount and say copy as is for the remaining month. So this basically helps you with your completion of the Excel template. So before I touch on the BAASS alerts, I would want to switch to the actual product so that I can show you what Wiseplanner looks like. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to position this in the center so that you're able to see. And I'll make reference to a couple of points that I made reference in the presentation. So as you can see, it's just the one screen. Without we try to keep this screen not as busy with just the required information that we need for the templates. So I have a company. I was mentioning that you can do your budgeting for multiple. In this case, I'm connected to Sage 300. So I have templates for 2 companies. One is called SAML64 and one is called SAML66. So if you have multiple Sage companies, you're able to continue and create more templates. I have my parameters. I have my accounts selected, and down here, when I was making reference to the reference column, because this budget template is for 2022, and I've said include the actual amounts that were posted to this GL account as of last year, it's going to give me a reference column. And I've said include budget set 2 from last year. Interesting, I didn't say 1 because 1 was probably just preliminary, and the second one was reviewed and approved, and some changes were made. And therefore I'm asking for a reference column for budget set 2. So now what I mentioned was, once you have your template to say, I want to start my blank budget template and I want to be budgeting for 2020, I've entered the parameters, and now I'll go ahead and launch my template. When I do that, in the background, you will see that it's building an Excel file, and it's I will navigate to it in a moment, but basically it's pulling data from Sage 300, in this case, real time, and it's building based on my template definition. And I will switch to that now, and it's still building, and let me know when it's finished the build. Okay. So when it's done it, which is close to about 28 seconds, it tells me loading data completed. What it means is it has made reference to every single account that I wanted. It's brought in my reference column, and it's prepared the budget sheet for me. So I'll go ahead and acknowledge that. I had mentioned that while the data is in Excel, this is, as you can see, normal Excel, we provide you with add-ins, and I mentioned that, and if I hit refresh, this refresh, if somebody has posted for whatever reason, they shouldn't be because this period should be closed now, but if they posted an entry here in GL, and if I hit refresh, this number will change and will bring me the number that is actually posted in Sage. Okay, so that's that refresh button. Here, the red columns are basically my entry point. So, okay, I've developed the template for budget year 2020, and therefore for each period, this is period 3, it's letting me do my data input. But if I click on anything else like period 3, I can't type in because these are just reference columns. This is telling me that last year your expenses were so and so. You didn't put any budget. This is probably just a sample company, so I didn't have any budgets. But here's where I can type in the figures to say this is my new budget, and this is what goes into your ERP. So imagine you have your spreadsheet now, which is this one, and I'm going to pick one account here, which is dues and subscriptions. So maybe you've signed up for some services, some subscription, and now I'm going to go into Sage to verify this number. It's 9693. So I'm going to the Sage screen. Period 3. That's the account. So sorry, I'm pulling the actual amounts, but basically, as you can see that this is the GL account in Sage. That's the account I have in my spreadsheet. But now I'm going to put in a figure to try and budget for 2020 period 1. Now, I can use the Excel functionality here to say, you know what, I'm going to take last year's actual and just add 10%. I can do that, right? Because it's Excel, and that's the whole purpose. We want to make it simple for you. And then I can copy this as is, and what it'll do, it'll copy the formula. So this is basically saying 10% of period 2, and this is saying 10% of period 3, and so forth, right? So it's not copying value, it's copying formula. So that's something that we've built into the template. If you wanted to put in a lump sum amount and say, you know what, spread the amount, then it'll divide it equally. So you get some easy to work with formulas out of the box. That's one thing. And you can even do just any other formulas or anything custom, or you can just, you know, type in some figure, right? Or you can do any of the above. The point is, once you put in your figures, and let's pretend this has gone through internal reviews and approvals, and you go, yeah, this is my final spreadsheet. Instead of going in and punching the figures individually, but for each GL account, right from within the spreadsheet, when you have it ready, you can say save to Sage. Okay, so it tells me update to Sage is completed. In this example, I'm using Sage 300. If I go back 62-100 and refresh for period 2020, and there I have it. Right. This is the 9862. If I change this number to 18,000, oops, and hit save to Sage, and I refresh, and now it's 18,000. My point is, you know, we are taking away that panic situation to say, you know, I completed my template, it's all in Sage, and now we need a revision. We know the reality of budgets. They need to be revised, they need to be changed, and therefore with Wiseplanner, once you have your budgeting completed and you need to make corrections, is as easy as I just showed you, right? You update the figure, even if it's just one GL account, hit save to Sage, and within minutes, you have, for every single GL account, you have the correct number saved in the right buckets of the budgets. So this was sort of a short demo of the Wiseplanner product. I mentioned that you can actually distribute these spreadsheets and then bring them all together. So in this example here, I have two templates generated, one for segment 100, and that may be a department in your case, and one for segment 200, another department. And then you simply ship off these two templates to the individual department heads. They complete it, and then so the distributor would send it out to them. And then when you approve, once you've had a review of everything, you would approve, and then you say upload. So you're able to upload multiple sheets, and it'll do the same thing that I just showed you. In the first instance, it'll only update any GL accounts that end with 200, and in the second instance, it'll update anything that end with 200. And that's what I mean by the distributed budgeting process. So we support both the one user mode as well as multi-user mode. But the only thing that I want to mention is that you, as the accounting lead, have to generate the different templates, and then you only have the ability to distribute. The recipients will complete and send it back to you. That's when you approve, and then you confirm in Sage. So it's the control is still with the accounting lead. The end users cannot write directly into Sage. Okay. So with that completes the demonstration of our Wiseplanner product. And just to summarize again and reiterate some of the points, the three objectives that we had is we wanted to keep it simple, we wanted our accounting users to be able to use Excel, and the last thing is that an easy way to put the budgets back in Sage 300 or whatever accounting system you're using without having to do any data manipulations, and then the corrections are extremely easy to make. Okay, so I will now move on to the other product that we have for today's agenda, and it's called the BAASS Alerts. So just like Wiseplanner, we have developed BAASS Alerts internally. We have a number of clients using this product, and it benefits them by keeping them on top of what is happening with their data. And what I mean by that is typically we've seen in our day-to-day lives, you have a critical situation. So for example, a vendor calls you and says, how come I haven't been paid for, it's over 30 days now? And you go, that should have been included in the payment cycle. Let me check, right? So you have a critical situation at hand and you have to react to resolve. So you'll probably pick up the phone, call the accounts payable lead and say, what's happening with this vendor invoices, and maybe there was some admin issue or whatever, and then you reacted, you resolve the issue. But that's just the one issue that you have to handle in a day. What we've helped our clients is to move away from that and move to be more proactive towards what is happening in their data. So rather than being reactive, something happened and now you have to react to correct the situation, we actually alert. That's hence the name alert. We can send out an email and alert you, say, by the way, this needed to happen, it didn't happen, or by the way, something happened, and therefore you're able to take action in your own space and time. You're not in that do or die situation and it's urgent. It may be urgent and critical, but you still have the breathing space that you haven't had the issue slip out of your hand. So that's the new way of doing things with BAASS Alerts. What we do in principle is the BAASS Alerts will monitor your data, right? It'll monitor and look for exceptions 24/7. So for example, you just completed your budget and now you're doing your expenses. But if any of the GL accounts are nearing the expenses nearing the budget by 15%, then you want to know, maybe it's just March and what's going on? Why am I exhausting the budget? I need to look into it. So if a GL account exceeds or is getting close to its budget, so the actual amount is now very close to the budget amount, and it's you have 15% of the budget left, BAASS Alerts will email a designated user to say, by the way, your subscriptions and dues account is so much amount and you only have 15% of the budget left. And when you look at that email, you go, oh, I need to look into that, right? So you tackle and address that issue before it's too late. I mentioned the vendor payment example. If your terms with your vendors are, we won't miss a timeline. We'll make sure that the invoices are paid within 15 months or whatever. And you just want your AP lead to be on top of that without having to miss that deadline. We can or BAASS Alerts can send that alert to your AP lead saying, hey, in the next 10 days, you have to make sure that you pay these vendors, and these are the invoice numbers, and these are the amounts. So the AP lead would say, oh, yeah, I'm aware of this, but wait a minute, which one is the invoice number 8? I don't recognize it. And he'll have that internal dialogue to say, what is this invoice about, and so forth. Again, they are handling the situation before it has occurred. We've seen that some clients want controls over their data, and they just want to be not necessarily restrict their team from doing anything in the accounting system, but they want to know. So for example, if somebody changes someone's bank account, sure, maybe there's a legit reason why they're changing their bank account, but you also want to be notified if somebody's bank or deposit account is changed. So BAASS Alert will monitor and email again a designated person to say, oh, by the way, so and so employee's bank account was changed, and therefore you get an email. You may say, yeah, I'm aware of it, and you ignore and you move on. Or a vendor a bank account or whatever that is, or even a vendor address for in some cases, because there are other implications that when that occurs, you may have to do or take other actions to make sure that you are compliant or whatever the situation may be. So any data changes, BAASS Alerts is able to monitor and send an email out to a designated user, letting them know what has occurred. So I will show you the product briefly, and because it's pretty straightforward, and then we will move on to our questions. So what you see now is our BAASS Alerts product, and it's fully web-based. In this example, I have 3 alerts set up. The one that I explained, the accounts, payables, vendor invoices due. If there are any changes, for example, on a customer record, or if there are any changes on a vendor record. What I've set these reminders, so I can check my data every 5 minutes. So that's what I've said. I've said I want to schedule it so that BAASS Alerts goes to my Sage 300 or whatever ERP system you're using and sends me a message. Now, 5 minutes may be too much, but if you want once every day, we can schedule it accordingly. We have that functionality. You may be running multiple companies, so we can pick and choose what companies you want to monitor. You can say, I want it for all the companies, or you can just say for the one company. You're able to set up the emails. So if this instance of overdue payment occurs, who should be getting the email? And you can set up a person, and you can select one person, and you can even have a number of CCs. You can put in your content, and once you do that, you save. So this is a one-time setup. You don't have to set this up over and over unless something changes in how you want to monitor your data. So once you set this up, you will see that this is how the email will be received to say, oh, office supplies, you are at $634, so you're very close to your budget, and you have 3.8% left. And maybe this occurs because you had a seminar, and you went and bought a whole lot of office supplies to cater for that, and you go, okay, yeah, I'm aware, and you move on. But maybe not. In some instances, you would want to drill down. In this example here, I have the vendor invoice, like I mentioned, to say everybody else was paid, but for some reason this invoice, wasn't. It's coming up, and it's not included in your payment batch, and it's due in the next 5 days, so it should be in your payment batch, for example. Something of that sort. So these were scheduled alerts. Now let's look at the trigger-based. The trigger-based are more, if that data changes in my accounting system, I need to know that now. That's the trigger. So it's immediate, right? And if somebody changes someone's bank account, you don't want to wait until the end of the day to be notified. You want to know at that point in time. And hence we call them trigger-based alerts. Again, these are just one-time setup. You would put in, the companies, what you want to monitor, the messaging, who gets the email. You can have, again, in this example, like the previous one, you can have multiple recipients. as well. You could have the CCs. You put in the content information, which is, you know, we work with you to set that up, and then here you go. This tells you that somebody changed the vendor address in your ERP system. So it was updated, and this was the vendor, and it was their address was updated. Again, you may look at it and go, sure, I'm aware, I know, you know, they've moved, or and you move on. But if it's something that you want to, you know, be critical about and drill into it for compliance purposes, you're able to do that. So in a nutshell, BAASS Alerts is a product that will have eyes on your accounting system, and then whatever you're interested to monitor, it'll monitor. Again, that's part of the configuration. It will work with you to configure what you want to monitor. But then from that point onwards, you will just receive emails in your Outlook to say, okay, something has occurred, this has occurred, this is how many people were affected, or how many vendors were affected, or how many customers were affected, or this is a situation you have unposted batches in your GL account, whatever the situation. But you will receive all of that information in your email. Okay, so with that, I thank you for your attention, and that is the end of the content of our webinar today, and we'll be happy to answer some of the questions. We are just monitoring the chat window. And okay, so I just have one question here, and the question is, how long does it take to implement BAASS alerts? And I'll tell you, it takes less than, once we install the product, and that's typically a coordination with your IT team. Once we install the product, it takes less than half a day to roll it out for you, and you start receiving emails, because it's really about configuring what you are interested in. We put the configuration and you start receiving the emails. So it's a very short deployment time. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So Amanda, I'll pass controls over to you.
All right, thank you, Bharti. Thank you again to everybody for attending our webinar on Wiseplanner and BAASS Alert. We want to say that all attendees will receive a copy of the recording in a follow-up email. To help us improve on future webinars, we kindly ask all attendees to participate in our webinar survey that will be attached to our webinar recording email. That's all for today, and thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.